There have been many Batmen. His popularity has kept the franchise thriving for over 80 years. That's a long time for a character to remain in the public consciousness. What is it about Batman that makes him such a compelling force? Besides the cool factor of the costume, car, gadgets, secret lair, and hidden identity, Batman has some pretty interesting pathology. He's not just a hero with a simplistic motivation to protect the world. He has some pretty complex baggage as a result of losing his parents to violence at a young age. This incident created a single-minded obsession which led him to hone his body and mind into the ultimate weapon against crime. Essentially, Bruce Wayne's unresolved demons led him to stalk the night and strike terror into the criminals like the ones who killed his parents. It's impossible to talk about Batman without talking about Bruce Wayne. They are one and the same person, but whereas Batman is a costume that Bruce Wayne dons to fight crime, it is in fact his true identity. Bruce Wayne is the mask, while Batman is his true self. Bruce Wayne is who he shows the world to give the impression of normalcy, while Batman is where he indulges his most honest feelings. Feelings he keeps hidden from everyone except his most trusted advisor, Alfred. These kinds of layers are difficult for any actor to portray effectively. It's very easy to play up the superhero aspects of the character while forgetting the heavy psychological issues. Of all the actors who portrayed this tortured hero, I feel Michael Keaton was the most effective at it. All the actors who played Batman brought something to the table, and I don't deny their talent, but I feel Keaton's portrayal to be the most transparent and honest. Adam West's performance never rose above the campy needs of the TV show. Kevin Conroy voiced the animated character, and he did a fine job, but again, it was a one-note performance that met the needs of a kid's cartoon and never really elevated to much beyond that. The same goes for all the other TV incarnations. Val Kilmer, who took over from Keaton in the live-action run, played it stately and precise, and I actually enjoyed the performance, but not as much as Keaton's. George Clooney, who replaced Kilmer, brought a similar level of stateliness, but like Kilmer, I felt he relied a little too much on charm and good looks to coast his way through the performance. Christian Bale is an interesting case because he was known as a very serious method actor, and his casting was part of the realism angle that Christopher Nolan brought to the franchise. But Bale's performance for me was a little too, well, methody. Fine for a definitive serious version of the character, but missing that special something. Ben Affleck, I felt, was done a bit of a disservice. I was intrigued by his interpretation of the character, but every time I wanted more, the movie kept cutting away to other characters and storylines that the studio seemed to be shoehorning in an attempt to build their own Avengers-like mashup. The term cart before the horse comes to mind, but that's a topic for another video. Affleck was somewhere between Kilmer and Bale for me. He was stately without being one note about it, but he also seemed to bring some seriousness to the role without going too far down the rabbit hole like I thought Bale did. Out of all the actors who played Bruce Wayne, I was probably let down the most by Robert Pattinson, but this may not be entirely fair to the actor and require some context. My initial impressions after seeing Matt Reeves as the Batman was that Bruce Wayne was nowhere to be found. Not the Wayne as I understood him, the mask he puts on to the world to hide his true darker persona. I felt that whenever Pattinson was in the costume, he was Batman, and whenever he took off the costume, he was still Batman, dark and depressed to the point of being an emo. But I've since come to realize that this may be part of an arc that Matt Reeves is building for the character. By the end of the film, Wayne realizes Batman isn't enough to fight the evils of the city, that they need hope. This could lead him to finally creating the Wayne persona that is integral to the character, someone who uses his wealth and influence to incite real change in Gotham, and someone who can also throw off the scent of anyone suspecting he may be Batman. I feel Michael Keaton brought an unhinged, almost loony quality to the role that heavily suggested the entity Batman teeming just beneath the skin. This is something I never felt from any of the other actors, as good as they are. To me, none of their Bruce Wayne portrayals suggested the Batman entity underneath. I never felt Batman hiding beneath the surface like a twisted gargoyle, just waiting to break through and take over. Keaton brought that duality, and this duality is the heart and soul of the Wayne Batman character, so I consider Keaton's interpretation to be the most honest. Hard to believe now, but Keaton's casting was initially met with derision. He was typecast as a comedic actor at that point, and people had a hard time believing he could successfully portray such a tortured character. But anybody who saw Beetlejuice could clearly see Keaton was capable of going to some dark and twisted places. And I'd argue comedians and comic actors have some of the darkest and most troubling psyches, or at least are able to reach those depths more easily than so-called serious actors. There is a definitive link between comedy and tragedy, and I feel comedic actors have the ability to go to those really dark places, because comedy requires a level of bravery and conviction in order to risk offending people for the sake of a laugh. Keaton had that bravery, and what seems like an understated performance at times is really Keaton being very good at walking the razor's edge between sanity and barely keeping it together. When you think about it, Batman is nearly as unhinged as many of his foes, but he is able to channel that darkness into something positive. And there are many moments where Keaton hints at this unhinged quality, and you feel a sense of danger from him. It's very, very subtle, but quite obvious if one is paying attention. This is something I didn't see in any of the other Bruce Wayne portrayals. Those other actors played things fairly straight. Even Bale, as good as he is, went a little too far down the tortured path, and as a result, I never saw the duality of the character, just a really depressed guy. I never got a sense that he could snap at any moment. I got that from Keaton. I even think Keaton is the best at donning the suit. The original film had severe limitations. The costume's neck couldn't move, so all of Batman's mannerisms had to be very carefully worked out. That's why you often see Batman posing in a very rigid fashion. This gave the Keaton Batman costume a more iconic look, in my opinion. I also felt Keaton's Batman was more intimidating. Again, the other actors played the character more superhero-like, but Keaton's Batman felt more dangerous, more mysterious. Keaton's unhinged, razor's edge performance as Bruce Wayne translated to his work in the suit. I'm sure everyone has their favorite, but for me, Michael Keaton's performance as Batman is the definitive movie interpretation of the character, and I just don't see that changing. I feel like directors and actors tackle the character in a one-note fashion, either going too far into the stately Bruce Wayne direction, or too far into the dark and depressing tortured hero. Keaton brilliantly balanced both sides and delivered something truly remarkable. If you enjoyed this video, consider hitting the like and subscribe button, as I'll be posting more content in the future. Thanks for watching.